My name is Tyler, and this is the How You Built This Indie podcast. In this podcast, I sit down with some of the most successful founders and entrepreneurs in Indianapolis and deconstruct how they have built what they have built. My goal is to inspire you to build something truly impactful wherever you are. All right, today I got to sit down with Nate Spangle. Nate Spangle is the founder of Bat Hats. Bat Hats is an e-commerce business that he bootstrapped out of his college fraternity house and ended up selling all across the nation. Bat Hats are cushions that fit snug on the top of a bat. They're great for if you're carrying your bats in the car or in a bag and you don't want them denting up places or getting damaged. I really enjoyed this conversation. He gives a lot of great tips on how to bootstrap from the ground up, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
How you doing today?
I am spectacular.
Awesome. I see you got your nitro coffee. Is that what that is?
Nitro cold brew. This stuff's like gasoline, and I will be talking 1,000 miles a minute.
You're good. I have my double espresso right here. So let's see if we can make any sense to the listeners.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what that was like.
Yeah, right on. So I'm from a small town in northern Indiana, Bourbon, Indiana, population 1,200. Very blue collar town. My parents both worked in factories. So putting wire harnesses together for RVs, working in med device. We're pretty close to Warsaw, Indiana, which is like the orthopedic capital of the world. So my dad worked in a factory over there building working on a machine that built shoulder implants and tools to do those sort of surgeries, orthopedic surgeries.
Funnily enough, I actually do know where Bourbon, Indiana is.
No way.
We ran out of gas near there, and we really struggled to find a gas station in the town. Because like you said,
There's just one.
Yeah.
The Bourbon Mini Mart. Great place.
Yes,
A lot of fond memories there for me in my childhood. That was like save up $1.25 and go buy some Bubblicious gum. That was like the thing to do.
Right on. So you grew up in the small town of Bourbon. You went to a pretty small liberal arts college, DePaul. What was that experience like there? Like, did you find a niche that you enjoyed there? Like, what was your major?
So for me, going from Bourbon with 1,200 people to DePaul with 2,400 kids, I was like, holy cow, this is a booming metropolis. Like Greencastle has a McDonald's. Like, let's go. I was in a Walmart. So I was pumped up. Like I didn't think that it was like it is a super small school, like when you think about it nationally, but it was also like a small enough pond where you could still like make an impact. So I got involved with a ton of stuff. So I was a member of the football team, ended up never really actually panning out as a player, going from being pretty good at a small school to like the kids from Indianapolis and all over the country that were coming there. Like there are some really good athletes. I actually found kind of my niche there as like the social media video guy my senior year. So like putting together highlight films and that kind of thing to kind of get the team some hype. So that was where I really like made an impact on the team there. That kind of got me involved with the television station at DePaul. So my senior year, we had our own show about sports gambling, which in 2019, it was still pretty taboo. So like going on there and talking about lines and March Madness and betting stuff was interesting, but we like pitched the concept to the station and they said, sure, go with it. So that was pretty fun. I was heavily involved in Greek life. So a member of the Delta Tau Delta fraternity, like I was the vice president there and then ended up getting into IFC with some of my closest friends. So there was definitely a ton of opportunity to be like a bigger fish in a smaller pond, which was what I really enjoyed.
Yeah, awesome. What were you studying there?
So I was a communication major. So I knew kind of going in, I was thinking econ, right? Like, there's not really a business school there. So it's like econ majors, or you can find like your own like liberal arts kind of like communication or political science or whatever there. So I was going to be an econ major. I walked in the first day of calculus and the professor said a bunch of stuff that I did not understand, but I did understand when he said at the end, this should all be reviewed to you. And I didn't know any of it. And I called my mom literally right as I got out of class and said, Mom, I'm going to be a communication major. Econ is just not for me. I'm not going to be able to go through calculus. And that was kind of my journey into being a communication major. But I knew that all my experience was like I was going to get into sales or marketing. Like the entrepreneurship route had always been super interesting to me. So I knew that was kind of like along my path, and numbers and econ and, you know, all that game theory like wasn't really for me.
Now, you kind of had entrepreneurship on your mind during this time, it sounds like. Did you express that to your parents?
No, growing up, I mean, I'd always like done kind of entrepreneurial things. Like I had like, and I didn't really think of them as businesses, right? Like I mowed 4 or 5 lawns around the town and like had my book of business, like lawn mowing. And one year for Black Friday, one of my closest friends and I like made a bunch of hot chocolate and like sold it to people in line, like waiting for Black Friday back when you still had to like wait in line until like midnight when they opened the doors. So like we always had the side hustle, like money making ideas in mind, but we never really thought of them as businesses. What I really wanted to do, honestly, which is crazy to say now, was I saw the people around the town that lived in the big houses or drove the nice cars. And I was like, what do they do? Like, how do I work in an office? And I was like, a lot of them worked in finance, like we're accountants. Like you either like worked in the factory, like on the line, or like for some reason I just thought like you either were a factory worker or you were an accountant. So I was like, great, being an accountant, like that seems like a safe job where you can make a lot of money, right? And you wear your suit and tie to work and drive a nice car and live in a nice house. So I was originally thinking accounting. I did an internship my senior year of high school in the accounting department at one of the factories. And I quickly realized that like numbers are not for me. So I kind of went into college with like a pretty open mind of like what I was going to end up doing. Just kind of thinking about what that journey was going to look like and
Mhm.
figuring out during those 4 years.
Yeah. On the show, we talk a lot about like developing your personal brand and your personal niche. When was it that you started to realize like I'm better at media and marketing and I don't have to be good at numbers. I don't have to be good at calculus. Like when did you start to really develop in that?
So when I kind of got plugged in with like making content around, I mean, I did an internship, I call it an internship. My best friend and I, he started a longboard company. So he was making like handcrafted wooden longboards. And I was working with him the summer after my freshman year. We were like we were going to festivals and selling longboards. We were making a ton of content and growing our Instagram page. I think he got it up to like 10,000 subscribers. And I found that making content with him was super fun. I mean, we had drone shots and we were hosting like races for longboards and meetups and all that fun stuff. So that was kind of my first taste of like making content. And then like working with the football team, like making their hype videos and all that fun stuff was also like, oh, this is fun. Like I get excitement from posting a video and seeing how many views it gets and how many, like what people are saying about it. So that was kind of the first step there. And then just like working in small business and entrepreneurship, right? The summer selling longboards, like it was super intriguing to come in and make an impact where it's like, I'm out there in person. I'm like at the Blueberry Festival in Plymouth, right? Or wherever festival we were at, like selling directly to people, like talking to them, asking them questions, learning about their story, sharing a little bit about our story. Like the sales route was super interesting as well.
So you kind of found you had a natural knack for sales.
Yeah, and I think that that's like something, especially like a lot of entrepreneurs like kind of need to learn. Like unless you're like the computer science guy that like builds or guy or gal that builds an insane product and can just like scale it and do something great with a product, like you're gonna have sales at some point in your entrepreneurship career. Like acquiring customers, like that's what makes a business run. Selling your business to potential new hires, like that's super important. So having that like kind of sales backbone is super important in entrepreneurship, in my opinion. And from what I've seen just through my experience thus far, it's like you can build a great product, but if no one wants to buy it, do you have a real business? You know?
Hmm.
So yeah, sales has just been something that's kind of been like, though I don't currently like, I mean, I obviously like sales is important and I wouldn't say I have like a title of sales, but like it's just like a lingering thing in the background of like, how do you sell your company? How do you sell your product? How do you sell your vision to the people around you and the team that you're with?
So you're at DePaul and you're really kind of making a name for yourself, involved in a lot of things, involved in the football team, involved in leading at your fraternity house. Tell me about this like business idea you had while staying in the fraternity house.
Yeah. So that story kind of like comes to fruition. I'm gonna kind of like backtrack to go forward. So I spent the spring semester of my sophomore. I ended up transferring from DePaul. I went back to a community college in northern Indiana, 15 minutes from my hometown. So my mom was diagnosed with cancer fall semester, like right around Monon, which is the DePaul Wabash game for those who aren't familiar out there. She was diagnosed with breast cancer that had kind of like moved to lung cancer throughout that time. And it just kind of like the way the cards aligned was I needed to go home and care for her and spend time back in Bourbon. So So I ended up transferring back home, went to a JUCO, Ancilla College, go Chargers, because her one wish was to see me to graduate from college, and kind of how things were looking, like it wasn't, we weren't sure that was going to be a possibility for 2.5 more years at DePaul. So while I was at Ancilla, I just like, one, worked really close with my best friend who was back home on the longboard business, and just thought about like business ideas. Like what could, with all this free time, I was a commuter student, and it was, what could I build? What could I sell? What kind of like just like having those ideas. And we had kind of tested and started a few kind of like preliminary concepts, and ended up starting an e-commerce business based around wooden laptop cases. So a lot of times, like, there's people have like the nylon sleeves. We made an all hardwood case that was like padded on the inside, and like built it and took it to market, and it totally flopped. Like we just didn't know what we were doing at all. I mean, Facebook marketing, all that fun stuff, like was just difficult. Uh, so as a time kind of went on, we were like, okay, we kind of spun down that business. But I had always had like, okay, well, I failed in e-commerce once, but then my senior year of college, my good buddy Matt Labus had this idea for bat hats, which is, if it's like a golf head cover, but for youth baseball and softball bats. So if you're on the Tigers, you can have a tiger that protects your bat. When your parents are throwing your bat bag into the car, it's not going to like crack their plastic. It's not going to bump into their windows, scratch their paint. Little kids are a little reckless with their bat bags with the two handles sticking up in the back. So bat hats cover those handles, so they're not like cracking your drywall or like damaging your car in any way. So he had the idea, and he had talked about it to me for 2 or 3 months. Like, I think this is a really good idea. I think this is a really good idea. And I was like, okay, dude, how about this? You and I just like spin this business up, and we go in on it and do it. He was like, are you serious? And I was like, yes. I'll handle sales and marketing, building our website, all that fun stuff. And you help, and we'll work together on like sourcing our product and bringing it, and you do all like kind of the operation stuff. And he was like, are you serious? Yeah. So we both put like $2,000 into it to get it started, got some prototypes built. We were both only taking one class our second semester senior year, so we had far too much free time on our hands. So we actually would like meet in the library of our fraternity house and like talk about like how we were going to grow this thing, like what we're going to do. We would be like instant messaging back with our manufacturer overseas of like, send us a prototype. And it was like, the prototype would be $200. And at the time we were college seniors, we're like, $200? Like, that's a lot of money to like, to get like a prototype that may or may not work. But we ended up being able to like get a working prototype that was awesome, buying our first round of inventory, graduate from college. And I had a house in Broad Ripple that I still have. We kind of turned my kitchen / garage into like our Bat Hats headquarters, and started fulfilling orders and growing the business there.
That's incredible. So as he brought this idea of a bat hat to you, how did you buy in to know this could be a successful business?
That's an excellent question, because a lot of people say like, do market research, like do all these, like validate your business. And like, I just like was on the
Was it just
side.
intuition?
I mean, I don't know if you want to say intuition, but I wasn't a golfer. I'm not a golfer. I'm terrible at golf. Like I have clubs and I go twice a year for like charity outings or whatever, but like not a golfer. So I didn't really know about golf head covers. And I stopped playing baseball when I was like in 7th grade. It wasn't really like I had a ton of market awareness, but he was like, this is like an idea that could work. And I just like trying things, right? Like leadership's just interesting to me. And I was like, you know what, worst case scenario, I fail at another thing and like, we'll just move on down the road. But I was like, it's like, he feels so strongly about it. I like building stuff, and I have this like skill set of like Shopify stores, marketing. Like, even though I failed at it the first time, it's like, I know more than I did last time. Like, we might as well spin this up and give it a try. And at the worst case scenario, it's like, we're gonna learn something along the way. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily like market validation or anything like that. It was just kind of like, you know what, let's just try it. Like, we might as well.
Yeah, like low stakes. Let's
Yeah.
just build the business and see what happens.
Yeah, like we put $5,000 into it, which like at the time was a decent chunk of money for two 22-year-olds. But it was also like, are we gonna like are we gonna go bankrupt over like if we both lose $2,500? Like, no, like, we're not gonna lose our house. Like, hopefully at the end of it we'll learn something. And it's like, that's just kind of where, like, similar to like college and where I was growing up, it was like, I was always encouraged to like go out and try these things, right? And like go and like if you have like, not, I don't know if bats was like necessarily like, oh my gosh, this is going to be $1 billion business and we're going to change the world. But it was like, we have a good idea. We can, like, what's the worst thing that can happen is like we lose a couple grand. Like, we might as well, like, we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if like we don't try it and someone else comes up with the idea and like grows it and, makes something big. So we were like, let's go for this thing.
So you got a prototype, then got inventory. Now, all this planning is pretty laborious, pretty intense, at least from an outside perspective, like building a product, getting it built, getting all that stuff shipped. Did you have guidance throughout this, or were you just kind of making it up as you went along?
Honestly, like, I wouldn't say we had a direct, like, e-commerce mentor or anything. Like, we had a few people that, like, offered us, like, guidance on, like, should we patent this? And we quickly found out, like, the technology is, like, not anything revolutionary, but, like, trademarking the name Bat Hats was super important, right? So, like, we wanna make sure that it's adopted as, like, your whether someone else ends up putting out one, it's like, that's a Bat Hat. Like, people are, like, calling it that. So we had, like, pro bono, we'll say pro bono legal counsel on like what to do there. But honestly, it was just like listening to podcasts, looking on Twitter, like Reddit, internet, all that fun stuff to like learn about what other e-commerce brands were doing and how they were scaling. And that was a little bit different because if you go like do your research, like people are going to point you towards like Movement watches or like Lisa mattresses, like all these companies that like that really scaled through Facebook ads and how they like built their businesses. It was a little bit different in 2019 because like it wasn't just like you could print money by running Facebook ads. So it was like taking a little bit of this and that. And actually the way we got our first $10,000 in sales was through I was listening to a podcast and they had on Taylor Offer, the founder of Feet hoodies. It's like the world they quote like they patent or they like say they're the world's softest hoodies. And he talked about how he grew his t-shirt business. They did like fraternity sorority like event t-shirts in college. And he actually joined like 250 Facebook groups all across the country. So like he was in Alabama class of 2017, Alabama class of 2019. He was in Texas Tech, like all of these random Facebook groups. And he had just like put out there that they had started this business. He's like, we're a college student. I started this business. If you have like t-shirt orders, like we'll give you the best price. Little did they know that he wasn't like an Alabama student. He wasn't a Texas Tech student. But I like, saw that and I was like, huh, Facebook groups are like a super powerful tool for travel, baseball, and softball. So literally my Facebook feed currently is all youth baseball and softball. I'm in North Texas softball moms. I'm in South California travel league tournaments. And I joined like 300 Facebook groups and I said, hey, we're launching this business. I'd love to hear your feedback on it. And I posted that in all 300 Facebook groups. And that's how we gained like so much traffic when we launched to our website, got our first $10,000 in sales was because like people were checking it out. We'd offer them a discount for providing us some feedback. They would end up purchasing it. And that's how we got like our initial traction there. And we got a ton of like hate, like this is a stupid product. Like why would anybody buy this? Like yada, 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 on and on and on. But for every like one negative comment, we were getting like 2 or 3 positive comments of like, this is so cute. My 7-year-old daughter like loves her unicorn, like et cetera, et cetera. So it was a great way to like, one, we didn't want to spend like $10,000 on Facebook traffic. Like, cause obviously we're like we were a startup with not a ton of budget because it was funded by 22-year-olds that were working their first full-time job. So we're like, how do we get organic traffic? We don't have like, we're not great writers. So it wasn't like building this robust SEO organic search strategy because who's searching for a bat hat? We're the only one on the market. But it was posting in these groups and asking for feedback and guidance there from people in the market. And it resonated really, really well. We were able to grow our email list to 5,000 emails like pretty quickly there, all through Facebook groups.
That's crazy. So instead of going like in my mind, I think of marketing as like Facebook ads, Google ads. Was this like organic Facebook method like much better in your opinion?
Absolutely. It was like pivotal to like early traction and like market validation because we made back our initial investment, right? Like we had great margins and we were like growing a business, getting our traffic for free and like selling our product that kind of like validated, okay, we have something here. We can grow up this business like profitably where we're at. Like obviously like you kind of run out, you can't post in these groups like every single day and like drive like everyone there. But like we were getting enough traction and visits and sales that we were like, okay, we have something here.
Mm-hmm.
And that like validated us as we like put money back into the business to start like, yes, we then did expand into paid ads and that kind of thing. But like early on, it was build the product, see if anyone's going to buy the product. And we found out that like, there was a market out there that would buy.
Was it hard to figure out like the order fulfillment process?
So luckily, I did have guidance from a good friend who's also a local entrepreneur, Lowell Bieber. He started Hemp Crate Co., which was a subscription CBD box company, and then he ended up selling that to He ended up selling that in a roll up to another company, and then started Platterful, which is a subscription box for charcuterie boards, also based here in Indy. And he had been like, he's probably like a year ahead of me in like that entrepreneurship journey. And he was like, use this Shopify plugin, it'll help you with fulfillment. But like, no, we were just getting the mailers. Like I would come home from work and I would package everything up, and then in the morning before I would go to work, I would drop it off at the post office. So we were shipping like early on like 5 or 10 orders a day, but then it got like around Black Friday our first year, we were shipping like 30 or 40 orders like for a couple of weeks there. And it was like, I mean, it was time consuming, but it was awesome. It was like that journey where it's like, holy cow, we're kind of blowing up a little bit. Like, this is super fun. Like, Matt would come over to my house, our headquarters, right, in Broad Ripple, and we would package all of our orders and get ready. And it was just like a super fun time.
Yeah. So you were totally just bootstrapping it. You guys were doing everything, even from literally putting the product in the boxes and shipping them. Did you come across any bottlenecks in terms of like, because it's just you two.
Yeah.
At what point does that become unsustainable, or is it just still you two?
So we've been able to, we've like outsourced to like a 3PL on the south side of Indianapolis.
I'm sorry, what's a...
So third party logistics, they fulfill all of our orders for us. So we have a warehouse where we store all of our inventory, and Logistics is the name of it. And they're like another local entrepreneur. They were involved with Hempcrate, which was Lowell's company. I got introduced there, and so they store all of our inventory, and they now fulfill our orders for us, which was like huge because, I mean, we were working full-time jobs, so having to go home and fulfill 30 or 40 orders at the time, like every night, was definitely getting taxing. But we wanted to make sure like we got to that point before we kind of outsourced that. And it was difficult to like make enough time to market and like sell Bad Hats, but also like fulfill all our orders. Also do customer service, like if someone wanted to do an exchange or anything like that. It did get to be just like a little bit too time consuming to do all that on our own.
And all of this was kind of a side hustle, correct?
Yeah.
Like you had another full-time job that you were kind of holding down.
Yeah. So I was a member of the Orr Fellowship program, which I started after school, which for those not familiar, a 2-year like postgraduate program focused on developing the next leaders in business leaders and entrepreneurs in Central Indiana. So yeah, I was working at a company called Apex Benefits by way of the Orr Fellowship. We were working in B2B health insurance, which is not the most creative industry, right? You're in health insurance talking about like deductibles, co-pays, like working with Anthem and United. So Bad Hats was kind of like my creative outlet where I could go and work on marketing and sales and more of like an e-commerce like fun. I won't say that insurance isn't fun, but it was a little bit more my forte to work on that outside of the 9 to 5 hours that I was working at Apex. Yeah, so we were kind of building it as a side hustle, growing pretty organically, and just like trying different things and learning. Like it was kind of like, I kind of say of like getting our like real world MBA of like how to launch and scale a business.
Yeah, I would think that's probably 3 to 10 times more valuable than an MBA, wouldn't you?
I would say that. I mean, unless you're getting like the Harvard MBA, but everyone a lot of people that I talk to that go to business school, like, yes, you learn a lot there, but a lot of them like give all the credit to like the connections and the people that you make, like these people that you meet. So you go to business school, like talk to, I think it's, if you've listened to How I Built This, right? If you listen to like the founders of Warby Parker, like they say like the most valuable part of business school was meeting our co-founders and like the people that we met there, the connections and the doors that opened up at UPenn for them, I'm pretty sure. So like a lot of business school people say that's the people are like one of the most valuable assets there. But like the learnings, it's like what we're learning, like testing Facebook ads and like growing this e-commerce business and working on these different like ways to get sales is, I think, more valuable than an MBA. I might be on the side of like being an anti-MBAer, right? But I just think it's super valuable to go out there and just try it and fail and like have to iterate and keep growing.
Well, yeah, it's one thing to learn it in a textbook and to hear a professor talking about their story. It's another thing to be kind of on the hook with like a bottom line and an actual business that you're trying to keep afloat.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know. Like I think back, I was a communication major. None of it really translated directly to business skills. Like I learned a lot about like speaking and problem solving and writing and all that, those fun things that you learned as a communication major. But I think about like what I've learned since starting Bad Hats, and it's just like vastly different of like, okay, customer acquisition cost and like lifetime value of a customer and just customer service time and all of these different like metrics that like even econ majors, right? Probably like, I don't believe we're taught at like at any school, right? It's like those, and I don't even entrepreneurship majors were even like taught quite the same skills that we've learned growing bats of like, okay, if I want to bring a product to the market, where do I start? How do I find a manufacturer and vet them out? It was literally just through like one, reading about, like listening to podcasts and reading on the internet about other entrepreneurs and like what they were willing to share. That's why I like love sharing the Facebook story, because it's like groups were a great way to get organic traffic to like grow that without spending a ton of money. And I learned it from a podcast. So like I hope other people that are trying to get their product to the market can like use that kind of growth hacky kind of way to get customer traction, because it was super valuable for us. Or like learning about how to get on Alibaba and start like talking to vendors and like what that looks like when you're manufacturing overseas and things like that.
What would you say, as you were kind of bootstrapping and scale this business, what was a very difficult problem that took a lot of energy maybe to solve, if one comes to mind?
Mm, that's an excellent question. Um, the like language barrier was a little bit difficult, like as we talked to overseas manufacturers, and it's like making sure that the product, like we wanted to make sure that we put out a high quality product, and we constantly get feedback that Bad Hats over delivers, like the pictures that we have on the internet, right? Like when you feel one in your hands, like parents are always coming back like, this is way higher quality than I thought it was going to be. And that was super important to us. And like obviously, like sometimes when you're manufacturing overseas, like you can end up with like a cheaply produced product. And so we had to do a couple iterations where like, no, like make this higher quality, like make sure that this is like good stitching, all that fun stuff. Cause it's Bad Hats are plush, right? And we want to make sure that they're not just like cheap vending machine things, like they're actually high quality, because they're going to be in dugouts. They're going to be like little kids are going to toss them around like baseball diamonds all across the country. So these can't just be like one and done. Like you use it once, take it to a tournament, and it's like ruined. So that was pretty important. And the idea, like the problem of like, how do we grow a business without spending a ton of money? Like we didn't want to like invest our entire life savings into this business because it's like we didn't know if it was going to work or not. So like getting creative, like finding these strategies to gain customers and like really personal targeted outreach to get sales, right? Like whether that meant like DMing people who were liking our posts on Facebook to like joining these groups and all these different things to get sales traction without like breaking the bank.
Yeah. Did you ever get outside investment, or was it all you guys?
So funny enough, I was meeting with people in the Orr Fellowship Network, like kind of the alumni, like as I was in my second year there, and I was getting ready to pitch in Elevate Ventures like Nexus pitch competition for a different idea on a newsletter that I was kind of like that we're still working on growing. And I was like, hey, I don't know anything about outside investment. Like these are the kind of like here's kind of like what I'm doing with Bad Hats, but we're kind of like starting to pitch in this pitch competition. And I talked to a guy who had a boutique private equity firm. I was like, hey, could you teach me about investments and what safe notes are and all this fun stuff? And so I could know going into this pitch, like what I was even pitching for. And I remember we spent like 20 minutes of an hour long call, like of him teaching me the basics. But then he just kept asking questions about Bad Hats. He was like, tell me about this. Like, what's your plan? How are you growing? What have you been doing? And I was like, yeah, like at the time, this was probably a year and a half ago. We had like sold into like 41 states already. We were starting to get some like retail stores under contract where we were selling into like directly into stores and like growing our B2B channels of the business. And I remember just like kind of ending that conversation and going away of like, well, yes, he taught me a little bit about like venture and like what it means to like take outside investment, but he didn't really ask a ton about the newsletter and the pitch competition. He was more focused on Bad Hats. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And then like 3 days later, he said, hey, we'd love to talk to you guys about the potential of investing in you guys. And that's when I was like, oh cow, like we might actually have something here that's like going to grow. And Rivermint Capital, and they're a boutique private equity firm out of Cincinnati. Rory and Connor are actually local entrepreneurs here. They started the Fans Place that just went through Techstars. They're the first Indianapolis-based company to make it into Techstars, and which is the sports accelerator is in Indianapolis. So they went through the program, but they're the first company in Indy that is based in Indy that got to go through the program. They're great. So it's Rory, Connor, and their dad, Duncan. Duncan is a 30-year Hasbro executive. So he worked with toys and soft consumer goods like his entire career. Their PE firm, Rivermint Capital, actually was our first and only investor and kind of like gave us a round of funding to help fuel growth that we took on maybe a year and a half or so ago. And they've been great partners for us. But it was super cool. We're like 23 at the time. I was 23, Matt was 24. And we like get a 6-figure check from an investor, and it's like, holy cow, like this is more money than I've ever seen in my life. And now we can like really grow our business and really dive into that. So we did take on an investor, and it was like honestly been a great partnership. They've opened some awesome doors for us and really helped us like grow and scale Bad Hats.
That's awesome. So where are you guys at now?
Yeah. So now everyone in the e-commerce space knows that the Facebook Instagram paid ads are really, really kind of puttering out. It's been difficult with like the iOS updates and like pixel tracking. So we've invested into a few different revenue streams. So we're working on our B2B channels, which is like working on trying to sign some national retailers that I won't disclose any name, but we have some verbal confirmation on the line that maybe in 2023, we're going to be offered in even more stores and even more websites than we already are, which is amazing, but really growing like Bad Hats could be an impulse purchase, right? You go to the store, you're buying a brand new bat, and it's like, wow, what is this cool thing that my kid can put on their bat and can go home and kind of like, one, rep their swagger, but two, keep mom and dad's car safe, keep the drywall. Like kids are not the most careful when it comes to spinning around and knocking their bats into things. Hoping that we can get into more retail doors across the country, as well as pursuing the potential of like college licensing. So instead of like right now we have 9 SKUs where we have like the Bulldogs, we have Tigers, we have Panthers, but instead of like having just a normal like generic tiger, it'd be like the LSU Tigers, right? The Clemson Tigers, the Auburn Tigers, like, and really making it like an officially licensed product. So starting those kind of like discussions and product development has been super fun. And it's like another thing to learn about and discover, right? Like we don't know anything about licensing, but I've been able to kind of like work in and network my way into a few mentors there to like kind of like give me some guidance on what we're doing there. So some really fun stuff on the horizon from Bad Hats of what we're doing and how we're going to grow and hopefully, I mean, keep scaling this thing. We have officially sold into all 50 states. You have no idea how hard it is to sell to a baseball team in Alaska, right? Like there's not a lot of baseball being played up there, but we finally did it. It was a huge milestone. I remember Matt and I celebrating about that, as well as Wyoming. Wyoming, also a difficult state to sell into. Not a high population there.
That's incredible. So I can totally see the Bat Hat being like in an aisle at Dick's Sporting Goods, like by the bubble gun and stuff, and just grabbing it, or like a college baseball team all has their theme. I think that's totally on the money there. In terms of like what I heard you say just a second ago was when you're diving into something you don't know how to do, like licensing a product for, say, a professional team, you said you're looking for the right people to walk you through that. Is that typically what you do? Comes to mind, I'm reading a book called Who, Not How, because I always think, oh, how do I do this? And I'll spend hours Google searching, reading blogs to wind up not still executing. Do you generally always go to a person, like try to expand your network?
Yeah, I can attribute like most things that have like gone well in my life to not necessarily like just doing research and listening to podcasts or like diving on the internet, but like really finding the right people. Like, and I was fortunate enough to like learn at an early age, right? Where it's like getting into the Orr Fellowship. It was necessarily like about the people I was able to connect with and share my story with. Going to work on the Powder Keg team, which is where I'm currently working at startup, right? Like it was all about expanding my network here in central Indiana and like getting in front of the right people to ask them questions about tech and startups and all that fun stuff. So I firmly believe where it's like you're learning a new skill, yes, do your research, but like I feel like that can sometimes lead to the paralysis by analysis where you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is so complicated. Like, how am I ever going to do all this? Where it's like, I go and talk to someone and have them like chop it up into like very bite-sized, like digestible, like kind of steps. Like that's just been super, super successful for me, as well as like they're willing to help. Like I think about like people around central Indiana are super willing to share their network, their resources, and help young, even if you're not a young entrepreneur, just like entrepreneurs in general. Like it's a very much community oriented place where like whether it's making intros or like providing guidance or mentorship, like people here in Indianapolis specifically are just super open to that. So I strongly recommend, especially for like young first time founders, it's like if you reach out on LinkedIn to people that are kind of like that are doing the dang thing, right? You reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm working on getting up and working on getting up off the ground. Like, do you have 30 minutes to hop on a Zoom call and just like walk me through how you did it? Usually people are willing to help you there, especially if they see you working on it, right? And it's not just like I have this idea. It's like, I've started, I'm doing this currently. Like, do you have like 20 minutes to provide some guidance on like this aspect that I'm struggling with? Actually, Sam Parr came on the Powder Keg podcast, and the founder of Powder Keg, Matt Hunkler, interviewed Sam Parr, who's the founder of The Hustle. I'm sure like if you subscribe to the newsletter, it's like an awesome newsletter about entrepreneurship and business. And Sam made this analogy, right? Where it's like when you're driving down the road and you see someone with a broken down car with just like trying to flag down people for help, are you more likely to stop if they're standing there, like waving their hands, like trying to get your attention? Or are you more likely to stop if you see someone pushing their car and struggling, like trying to move their car to get gas or whatever? And it's like 9 times out of 10, like people are more willing to stop when they see someone struggling but they're pushing, they're working on it. Like I think about like just that analogy just like resonated with me, where if people see you pushing that car, pushing that business forward, like putting the effort in, they're willing to help you. Versus like, if it's just an idea and a concept and it's like, the one thing is like, I'm thinking about doing X. Like at some point you got to stop thinking about it and just like, I am doing X. Like, but this is where I'm struggling. Like I've gotten it this far and like, I need to know how to like bridge this gap. You know, like what did you do to get past from like 10,000 to 100,000 in sales? Like, how do I scale that? Like, what are you doing when it comes to customer support or raising funding or anything like that?
Yeah, I've noticed too in my own business, which is in real estate, whenever I'm getting into something I don't know how to do, like I just set up my first short-term rental, I had no idea how to set the prices for nightly rents, how to adjust the availability, how to make sure the staging's right. But I noticed that if I go to someone that is an expert, sit at their feet and say like, I'm struggling with X problem, almost never do they say, sorry, bud. But I think it's right. You have to make sure you're showing that you're going to implement what they're going to give you and that you recognize like they have something to give and you're going to protect that time that they're giving you.
Yeah. Cause I mean, everybody has like, I have such a great idea. Like I had this business idea. I had this, and it's like, ideas are great. I come up with a new idea like 5 times a week. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. But it's like, I'm not going to go get on like a local founder's calendar to talk about this idea where like I haven't even started anything on it. Like they're just like, it's just a kind of a waste of their time and like a little bit disrespectful. Like I think the basic way of starting is like, I have this idea for a business. Great. Go build out an Instagram profile for it. Like show me that you're working, like you're moving a little bit towards it. Like go buy a domain. It's $15 a year. Like start putting up a website. Like you can figure out how to do that on your own. And then like, as you have these more challenges, like show that you're pushing your car, right? Like show that you like have taken steps and it's not just like this hairpinned idea that you had, like, oh, I had this great business idea that can be a unicorn. It's like, that's awesome. Everybody's got an idea. It all comes down to execution. And like people are willing to help you, especially if you show that like you are starting to like take execution on it. Like whether your business is like window washing or like AI machine learning, like take a step towards like building it. Like that's like my biggest thing where it's like everyone wants to put together, like I have started like four businesses so far and I have built a business plan for 0 of them. Like we raised over 6 figures of funding and we did not have like an official business plan for any of it. It was like, this is what we're doing. These are the metrics. Like
Just taking action.
We're taking action and we're like action speaks so much louder than like this great plan. Cause at the end of the day, it's like we're 25-year-old entrepreneurs, like first time founders. Like we could do all this market research of like how we're going to be compared to XYZ person in the market. We're going to get this much market share, but it's like, would you rather like me tell you about all this research that I've done or like go out and say, like, I have 5,000 customers. Like I have retailers that we're talking to, like take action and like show that. And like people are so much, in my opinion, in my experience, like so much more willing to help when you're like just pushing your car.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. So I want to switch gears here. What are you working on now?
So main focus was working with Powder Keg and our team of 4 people there that are building an executive community for tech professionals based outside of Silicon Valley. So kind of like the stereotype is like all of these unicorns are being built in San Francisco and they get all the press and all the media. And like people know, like when I Google top tech companies to work at, you're going to end up Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, right? Alphabet. But really Matt, our founder, he started, I don't know, a decade ago, really touring across the country and hosting startup events in Raleigh, in Denver, in Indy, in Nashville, in Columbus, Ohio, and Austin and Miami before they were cool, and helping like build these startup communities. And now we're working on helping those executives connect with each other, connect with investment, connect with potential talent, and really just helping grow this community that we call the Unvalley, which is like the unbundling of Silicon Valley all across the country, especially now that you can work remote, right? I'm a senior software engineer. I live in Indianapolis. There might be a great tech company in Kansas City, Missouri that I've never heard of, but is doing great things that I might be a great fit for. So helping like really make those connections. So working with Powder Keg on helping grow that community. One of my business partners and I have a few, so the real estate vein, right? We have a few rental properties up in Broad Ripple. Keep talking about Broad Ripple because I'm a homebody to there, but here in Indianapolis, but working in the rental space, kind of growing a real estate portfolio there. We ended up winning the pitch contest that I talked about. We won funding from Elevate Ventures to grow our sports gambling newsletter. So we put out a weekly sports gambling newsletter, me and a few of my college friends, right? Everything kind of stems back to DePaul and kind of like the connections that I made there. So me and a few college buddies aggregate sports gambling data, trends, and insights from across Twitter and put it in a weekly sports gambling newsletter. We got our first round of funding from Elevate Ventures, and I've just been working on growing that to help as sports gambling becomes more. It goes back to like the show that I started when I was a senior in college. Like it's always been an interest of mine. So how we grow that newsletter and work there. And then the final thing, I guess, keeping me busy. I'm the head wrestling coach at Bishop Chatard High School. So just diving in, it's a winter sport. So we're getting into the meat of the season there.
Yeah, you got a lot of irons in the fire, man. That's awesome. I have to ask, just because I'm a real estate nerd, do you have a strategy you're employing with your investing?
Make more money than we spend on our mortgage, right?
Cash flow.
Cash flow, baby. Cash flow is king. So, and for us, honestly, because we're not cash investors, we like have to finance and go through that kind of stuff. It's like acquiring properties. Like we're, again, two 25-year-olds that are just like kind of like digging our way through the real estate that's like kind of dominated by like people that have already kind of made their money in other industries and are now joining real estate. So like finding off-market deals, like getting properties under our umbrella has been like a big thing. So like we have like, I'm a partial owner in 3 different properties. And it's just been like 25, acquiring as many properties as we can that are going to like, maybe not like cash flow a ton of money so we can quit our jobs right now, but like just getting properties under management for us has been like our big strategy there, because we're not, like, again, we can't come in with cash only offers and close in 20 days. We have to go through lending and all that fun stuff. So our strategy is to like build and acquire properties in any way we can.
So just a buy and hold strategy.
Yeah. Kind of like our thought is like, I mean, we're thinking about, I don't know, 25 years from now when I send a kid to college one day, it's like, oh, great. Like we could sell this house that we have there. And
that Broad Ripple rental will be fun into college. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thinking about it that way.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I have a couple really quick fire questions I ask every guest, and then we'll kind of wrap it up here. But how do you know if you should go into entrepreneurship?
Excellent question. I think one of the big ways is if you have an idea that like kind of nags at you and you can't stop thinking about, and it's like, and it's not like can't stop thinking about it, like I think about this every second of every day, but it's like it keeps popping up where it's like, oh, like what about this? Or what if I did that? Like, and if the idea like sticks there, and it's like, and if you saw someone else doing it and being successful at it, it would piss you off. Like if I think back to it, where like if I saw someone else like doing bat hats and we never would have taken a step on it, and like I saw someone doing it, it would like make me cringe, right? Or like if I saw someone else put out a sports gambling newsletter that was like doing what we're doing, I'd be like, shoot, I had that. And I don't want to be the person who's like 60 years old down the road where it's like, well, I thought of Facebook first. So I just didn't know how to get it started. It's like, no, like that's BS. You know, like everyone's thought of the idea, like who's going to execute on it? And I like to pride myself of like, I'm a guy who like gets shiz done, right? So it's like, if I have this idea and it's like going to tick me off to see someone else working on it, it's like, I want to at least try. Like even if I fail and like someone else can execute it better, like great. Like at least I gave it like the old college try.
I love that. And I think you have to have that intuition to know this is a good idea. And I know if I need it, other people need it. So I'm going to build it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that's so important in entrepreneurship, right? And it's like there are going to be challenges and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like it doesn't have to be this elaborate plan that's like that's like step for step, because there's going to be challenges and like adversity all along the path, but it's just like taking a step, like going from A to B. Like obviously you have Z in mind, but it's like you can't get there without going through the other 25 letters of the alphabet.
Yeah. All right, quick fire. What is your favorite business related book?
Oh, good golly. That's a great. So my number one book recommendation is not necessarily completely related to business, and it's gonna sound like a super like it's a pretty polarizing book, but it's Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and it's not just about business, but it's just about life, and it like kind of like putting your head down and continuing to grind and like finding the things you're not good at, right? Like I know that I wasn't like an Excel like data guy, so that's why my co-founder of Bad Hats, Matt, is like a finance wizard, and it's like I like a lot of what you learn in the book Can't Hurt Me is like identify what you're not good at and either fix it or like find out how to like put other things and supplement that in there. So I strongly recommend David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, but business specifically rated, I'll say Shoe Dog, the story of Phil Knight. Great book. Also spectacular.
You're the second person to say that.
Oh, really?
2 out of 2, actually.
It's great. Shoe Dog is spectacular. And it's just like a good story that like gets you pumped up.
Yep. This is pretty broad. Why Indy?
Oh my gosh. Why Indy? I am the biggest advocate, one of the biggest, there are maybe a couple others, but I'm the biggest advocate for Indianapolis because here I am, I sit here, a 25-year-old, came to Indy. I'm not from Indy. My dad wasn't in a country club. Like I don't play golf with the mayor. Like I didn't know anybody moving to the city except for my college friends. And the city just opens its doors to me, right? Like getting investment for a startup idea, like getting a job at a startup as like a team of 4 people, the Orr Fellowship, like everything I attribute in Indianapolis is because the city is so welcoming and willing to help each other out. Like it is crazy how accessible it is. Like founders of companies willing to talk to 25-year-olds is crazy, like, and this place just like really roots for each other. There's healthy competition, right? Like people want to be the best and want to succeed, but they also want to help and like cheer each other on. And it's so welcoming. And like you'll hear it across like the tech sector, the finance sector. Like, this city works together to make it special. And it's like another stereotype is like the small town with the big city feel, like Indy is just a special, special place where you can get in front of the people you want to talk to fairly easily.
What's your favorite restaurant in Indy?
Excellent question. So again, I'm a Broad Ripple stan, right? Like I love Broad Ripple and I have to go with, I'm going to give a top 3 if that's okay. But number 1, I think is going to be Half Liter. Spectacular barbecue right there on the Monon Trail. It's great. Broad Ripple Tavern, if you're familiar, it's on Broad Ripple Avenue. I love that place. Every Friday. BRT, right? Yeah. Every Friday in the winter, you're going to find me there talking high school wrestling or college football with my buddies. Third one, new upcomer that is spectacular is the Bulldog Lounge, 54th in College. It's awesome. They have like a beer wall where you have a little bracelet, pour your own beer, and food there is spectacular. So it's quickly rising up my ranks, but those are my top.
Good to know. I live literally probably 2 blocks away from the Bulldog, and we haven't tried it yet.
Oh my gosh, you have to go. Like go this weekend.
Okay, I've heard they have your own like pour your own taps.
You pour your own taps, so you get a little bracelet and you like pour your own beer, and it's awesome. I mean, it's a great place. And if you're watching games, huge selection of TVs, like great viewing opportunities for college football Saturdays or NFL Sundays.
Right on. Thanks so much, Nate, for coming on the show and sharing a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely, brother. It was a pleasure, and I appreciate what you're doing. Like really bringing light to what's going on in Indy. I think it's a super special place. It holds a special place in my heart, and I'm excited to like hear you amplify the stories of other founders and entrepreneurs that are coming up through the ranks in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. Where can people find out more about you and Bats and Hats?
So Bad Hats, you can find at shopbadhats.com. You can go on there and check. We're going to be releasing some new SKUs in 2023, so definitely check it out there. Best place to find me would be LinkedIn. Just search Nate Spangle, or Instagram, search Nate Spangle again. And yeah, you can find out like what all I'm up to. There's a bunch of tags in there and all that fun stuff. I currently actually don't own the URL, natespangle.com. One of my friends bought it, and he's making me build out this website plan of like how I'm going to put my portfolio together. So don't search natespangle.com because I don't own it yet.
There'd be a lot of pages on that website between coaching wrestling, Bats Hats. Yeah,
absolutely, brother.
You'd have a lot going on. Awesome. Right on. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening, and come back for the next one. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How You Built This Indie podcast. My hope is that it gave you some insights, inspiration, and some rocket fuel to put your own ideas out there and to get to work building something impactful.
If you know of a great founder or entrepreneur that I should definitely have on the show, please reach out. My email is tyler@tylerlingle.com. For more about my work in real estate in terms of residential real estate or real estate investments, visit my website, tyler@tylerlingle.com. That's tylerlingle.com. Thank you guys, and hope you have an awesome week.